Hi everybody, my name is Melissa and welcome to my she shed. Today's tutorial we are going to be making a shrug. Did you see my previous tutorial? We're going to do that, but we're going to do a completely different edging on the cuffs and the band that goes around the body. So here is a refresher of how to do the actual body of it, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the different design around the edges. But before we do that, I just wanted to show you the yarn I'll be using for this one, which is lionbrand Heartland. You will need about 4 balls of this. I am doing the small, however I will put the details of the larger sizes down below in the comments. And you will be needing a 7mm hook, 4 balls of this for a small, and I will meet you back here when we're at that point to do the edging. Here is a recap. Alrighty, so just to let you know, the sizes I will give you are just a guide. They're not hard and fast, everybody's a different size. So there is a trick to having this work out for you and your size. So first of all, let's do that chain. Do a slip knot and put that on your hook. So remember, I go up a hook size, so this is my 8mm hook. And with this yarn and the sizes nearly just slightly out, but it's nearly 1 stitch per a row per centimetre for this, which is really handy. So I need to make this 92 centimeters long for a small, so I'm going to chain 92 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here are my 92 stitches, and to check that this chain is long enough for the person you're making this for, wrap it around their shoulders, so around the shoulders and around the back, so it sits midway down the shoulder, like on the shoulder blades, and cross it slightly at the front, and that is going to be the size you need to do. Now you need to change your hook over to your 7mm hook. Now you've got your 7mm hook, chain 1, miss that chain you've just done, go down to the next chain, turn your work so you're not looking at the V's at the front, turn your work and go to the lump at the back. We're going to be doing half double crochets. So yarn over, go into the loop on the back, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And we are repeating this in every stitch. Continue that and I will meet you at the end. Row number 1 is now finished, so we need to carry on and we need to chain 1, turn your work and continue your half double crochet with a total of 67 rows. So you've finished row 1 and now you need to do another 66 rows. This is to make it about 70 centimeters long, and then we will go through how to make it into a garment, so the sleeves, and put the decorative edging. Once the decorative edging is on, the width of the garment will end up being 84 centimeters. This is the same size length, or width I should say, that we have for every single size. Now if you feel that this is way too long, for this shrug here, the decorative edge ends up being 7 centimeters wide, but once you've folded it and everything, it ends up making it 14 centimeters wider than the body. I would suggest that you keep the decorative edge that wide, but shrink the size of the body down. So once again, if you're finding the width is too wide, or too long I should say, for your body or the body you're making it for, shrink the amount of rows that we're doing now rather than the decorative edge. And it'll make more sense when we get to that at the end, towards the end of the video. But for now, I'm going to leave you to do your 67 rows. So we've done row 1, we are now on row 2, 67 rows in total, and I will meet you back here when you have finished that. So you have finished your 67 rows. You should have a rectangle now, and we have finished off. So cut off a long tail, because that's what you're going to be sewing up one of the sides with. And bring your yarn through, tighten off. Now what you need to do is get your big square, or rectangle I should say, and fold it in half. Now make sure you folded it the way that, so the lines are going that way, not that way. Now once you have folded it in half, then what you need to do is mark the side, and you can see I've already done this here. This is going to be your armhole. Bring it over. This is going to be your armhole down here, and you need to mark out 17 centimeters from here to here. And we are going to be sewing up from here to here. Or with this yarn, I found that just counting 19 stitches on one side and exactly the same 19 stitches on the other side, put your stitch marker in so it's exactly the same row on either side, and then that actually left me with 17 centimeters down here. Now we are going to sew this part up, and this will end up being your armhole. It doesn't have to be very big because your wrist is actually going to go through there, and we're going to make a 10 centimeter panel of decorative stitch. Let's sew this part up. So just a tip, before you sew up the sides, make sure that you've got the side that you think is not the nicest on the outside. Or maybe you're a perfect crocheter and it doesn't really matter which side it is. I generally have it that the side that I've sewn in all the ends will be the inside of my garment. When I'm sewing up, that becomes the outside, and then I turn it inside out after I've finished doing all the work. So yarn on the needle, on your yarn needle, and then simply sew along that edge. And I don't do anything special, just don't make it too tight, make it as even as possible. And another tip, make sure your rows line up, because it will be noticeable when you finish. So periodically turn it so that you know that your rows are matching. It will show once the garment is finished if they're mismatched. And continue sewing up this side, and then repeat exactly the same thing on the other side, which once again it is 17 centimeters from the top of your armhole to this point here. Put in a stitch marker, or alternatively with this yarn count 19 rows, 1 2 3 4 so on, and put the stitch marker on the 19th row for either side so they're married up, so you've got it lined up, and the rows aren't going to be mismatched. and then just start sewing. Once you're finished there, come back and we'll do the armholes and make the decorative sleeves. I should actually say cuffs. So here is our garment sewn up, and now we're ready to do the decorative paneling and the cuffs. We're going to start with the cuffs first, and what we are going to do for this decoration for our cuff is the rib stitch. So this time we need to have the garment facing the right side out. So I know that this is the inside because I've marked the inside with my stitch marker, and there we go, got it the right way. So let's go straight to the seam. Start off your yarn however you like to start off your yarn. And then we want to chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Skip that first chain and we are going into the second stitch chain right there, and we're doing single crochets. So yarn straight into the next chain, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through the 2 on the hook, and keep doing this all the way down to the end, making sure that when you get to the end you have got still 10 stitches. And what I would recommend is when you're doing this to constantly count that you have 10 stitches throughout doing your entire cuff. It is really easy to lose a stitch or even gain a stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. So when you get to the end, we need to attach this to the body of the work. So the way we do this is we slip stitch. So what I suggest, because you're at the end of each row of the garment, so let's say that was a row there, your next slip stitch is going to go in here and the next one I put there. So go into wherever you think it is central, grab a yarn, pull it through and pull through the loop on the hook, and then go into the next row, grab your yarn, pull it through and pull through the loop on the hook. Count back 3, so that was one of your slip stitches, second one of your stitches, slip stitches, and this is the first stitch of your work. So count back 3, 1, 2, 3, put your hook straight in, grab a yarn and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. You've just done your first stitch of your rib, so there's 1, 2, and work rib all the way down. Your rib is going into the middle of that stitch, working to the back, grabbing, pulling through, so into the V, towards the back, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through the 2 on the hook. So now I'm at the end. I'm going to count that I've got my 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Chain 1, turn your work, repeat your rib, which are your single crochet in each back of the stitch. Now you can count in your head that you've got the 10. You can count it at the end of the row that you've got your 10. And sometimes the last one can be a little tricky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the last one has stuck his little head right here. Okay, and again, so we're going into this row here, slip stitch, and there's the other row there, slip stitch, count back 3, 1, 2, 3, going in and starting your ribbing again. We'll run through that one more time. Chain 1, turn your work, do your rib again, and that last one being the tricky one, and I've been counting in my head, so that's how I know I've got 10. So looking at your work, there's the next row, do your slip stitch. There's my next row, do the slip stitch, count back 3, 1, 2, 3, and continue. Now I'm going to leave you to finish your cuff. How many rows you have, there is no hard and fast rule of that. That is purely up to you. But what I advise is that you make a note of how many rows you have on this side, and you make sure you repeat exactly the same on the other side. You don't want mismatched cuffs. So I'm going to continue. I will come back and show you how we join this together, and I will see you then. When you have come back to the beginning, there's your two ends there. We need to go up the side. So what you need to do is you're on one side and go to the other side and just grab the first stitch. Now the first stitch is always the hardest. You're just going in the top there and then straight through. Go into the next stitch. So we're just slip stitching the stitches together, go to the other side into the next stitch, grab a yarn and pull through all 3 on the hook, and there's the next stitch and the next stitch on the other side. So you're not taking the whole stitch in, just the tops of the stitches. You're wanting to have that look like it's a continuous rib. Next one, and last stitch, and then that is done. Snip it off, pull it through, and sew on your end, and there we go. There is your ribbed cuff. Now you just need to repeat that on the other side, and then when you have done that, come back here and I'll show you how we do the same on the edging. Now that you have completed your 2 cuffs, now let's do the same thing on the edging, and we are literally going to do exactly the same. So start on the edge there where you sewed it up, join your yarn however you like to join your yarn, chain 11, go back 1 stitch into that next chain and do your single crochets all the way down. Remembering to make sure we've got 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then joining to the body of the work. Now this time it's going to be a lot easier because this time we actually have the worked edge. So that was the finish edge or the start edge, which makes it a lot easier. We know exactly where our rows are, or our stitches are going to go. So my first stitch is going to go in here, so I'm going to do a slip stitch there, and then my next stitch straight into here. Count back 3 and start your next row. So let me run through that part again with you, because it is slightly different than the cuffs, because the cuffs you're working at the end of the row, and this you're working down the bottom of the row where your finished stitches were after you finished or started your work. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, chain 1, turn your work, and now we're back at the bottom, just to show you one more time what we're doing. So we're going into each stitch, so the next 2 stitches you can see there they are clearly, slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2, 1, 2, 3. Now one pointer I forgot to mention is, remember you're doing your ribs on the front, not from the inside out, from the front in. So when you look at it, there we go, I'm working from the front, from the outside. I know this is the inside because I've got my stitch marker there, so you're working on the outside. Alright, so I am going to leave you to finish that, and then once that is done, we'll join it together, and I think we've finished our shrug. So I'll see you back here shortly. Okay, so finished doing the ribbing, and the last thing we need to do is sew that together. So go into the first stitch, pull it through, and you should be an expert on this by now because you've done your 2 cuffs, but just as a reminder, going into each stitch and slip stitching them together. So remember, it's just at the top of each stitch, through the middle, and once you've got down to the end, so this time I've sewed from the top down because that's just how my rows lined up. Bring your yarn through. So with my cuffs, it lined up the other way around. It really doesn't matter which way around it lines up, you just sew it off. And if it lines up so you finish sewing up down the bottom, put your yarn through, and then obviously sew off on the inside of your garment. And then sew off any tails you might have, and all your sewing and knitting, crocheting and everything is done. One more thing though that we need to add to this, and let me show you. Last thing we need to do with this shrug, as you can see I've got it laid out here and I've lined up the middle bit here, and what we are going to do is attach a shawl clasp or a cape clasp, shawl pin, I'm not sure what you call it, cape clasp. I get these from Amazon, dirt cheap, got a whole bundle of them, different colours and different patterns, and they're really easy to attach and take off and put on, which is what I really like about them, because it's just a clip at the back. So what I tend to do is you can put them anywhere, whether it's up high to keep it together like so, or straight in the middle. So bring it in a little bit. It actually, I find, works better to be put in a little bit, But if you want it on the edge to have more of an open look, like so, that's fine. Place them wherever you think it looks the best. One there. The other one there, and then you just bring it together and clasp it like so, and it just adds that little bit of bling, and I really like it. I think it looks good. I'm going to take a few photos and I'll show you those photos now. And that is the end of this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed making this shrug. I think they're fun, and I like this edge of the rib stitch. I think it's worked out beautifully. If you would like to see the other shrug design that I have made with a different bordered edging, please follow the link in the comments below. And also, if you would like to follow any other tutorial that I have done in the past, please check my playlist. Otherwise, everybody, I hope I see you back here at the She Shed sometime very, very soon at my next tutorial. And until then, have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone!